Organizational culture presented by People Aim. Let's begin with a basic understanding that organizational culture is learned, shared, and behavioral based. This will be emphasized as we move through the presentation. The table on this slide demonstrates the who and how a culture of an organization is framed. At the top of an organization is the C-suite, the final decision makers. These are the officers of the company, and they create the expectations for the perceived image and behaviors of the company. Now, we're not talking about their personal image and behavior, although their image and behavior may have a significant impact on the company. What we are describing here is the brand. So to say, we're looking at logos, the company's social responsibility, their corporate governance, policies such as the dress code, conflict of interest, or diversity and inclusion. We look at how employees are introduced to the company or how they may exit. What is the perception of the company from an external and internal view? This is formed by the C-suite, beginning with clearly defined and articulated vision, mission, and values. These are then entrusted to the executives of the company. As the policy makers, executives interpret the mission, vision, and values to create policy and procedural frameworks. These frameworks can only be successful when emotional intelligence and cultural awareness are utilized when creating and executing strategy and policy that is developed within these frameworks. Once the frameworks have been created, the company's leadership manages the strategy and policy by actioning the desired performance and behaviors. This is done by demonstrating and fostering proactive representation of the vision, mission, and values. Our leadership are the anchors of the organization's culture. What this means for the employee base, for all employees, is an environment where they learn and develop shared assumptions and values. These are then strengthened through social validation or the internal and external influencers. The development and management of a company's culture is not linear. It is a loop of forming, interpreting, actioning, and learning, and it intersects at all levels. The C-suite learns from the employee base and understands that culture is organic and always changing. Here we'll look at a high-level review of the 4 categories and 3 levels of organizational culture, as notated from Eckert Scheen's Organizational Culture and Leadership. Our categories are, first, macrocultural. This is the where the organization is, and the influencers, such as the nation, ethnic and religious groups, or the industry it operates in, the global occupations. Second, organizational, the how the company is operated, such as a government organization, a nonprofit or a public organization, or a private for-profit company. Third, we have the subculture, the who. This is the who within the company. For example, what is the regional population? What is the age of the employee base? Maybe the economic or education class of the employee. And fourth, microculture. This is the internal who, like the naturally forming cliques within a company. assign task forces or teams or small groups within a department or a department. Then we have the 3 levels. These are the artifacts, or basically what the C-suite forms from a tactical or a physical to a perceived. The ESPEST values. This is what the executives in our leadership, they interpret and they action. And we discussed those a little bit earlier in this presentation. And basic assumptions. This is what the employee observes, learns, and reforms. The 4 cultural categories intertwine, and awareness of the impact of each, whether it's intentional or unintentional, is critical. The 3 levels of organizational culture, they churn the organization's ability to manage internal integration and externally adapt. Keeping these in mind while we're creating frameworks and we're managing organization culture is imperative. Let's reiterate leadership's role in organizational culture. Our leaders form the culture. It is formed by developing fluid strategy and a policy and procedural framework, emotional intelligence and cultural awareness while creating strategy and policy is critical. Our leaders manage the culture. Leaders are the anchors of the organization's culture and must demonstrate proactive representation of the vision, mission, and values. Recognizing that the organization's culture is organic and that it must be constantly managed will mitigate potential workplace work-life issues for employees and the organization. Now that we have a high-level understanding of the influencers of organizational culture and the framework and management of the culture, let's take a look at what is the current status of our cultural framework, what we would call a thumbprint. We can begin to evaluate this by asking the following types of questions, such as, how well was the culture managed? Has there or have there been many versions of the mission and vision, that values? Has there been new ownerships or leadership changes? Rapid domestic and or global growth? Turnover of generational workers and systems? Environmental impacts? Of course, this is just an example or samples of questions that can be asked. But once we ask these, then what do we do? How do we identify if there are any gaps? Well, we can utilize people analytics. Metrics such as turnover, what group are turning over, such as what age group or what department or uh, occupational group. What type of employee relation issues do we have? How often do we have it? Is it specific to a certain area? Who are absent? Why are they absent? What are the reasons? Who are we retaining? What is our tenure of people that we are retaining? And so on. We can also utilize things such as engagement and pulse surveys, how well we are onboarding, what our performance management looks like. Are our performance reviews working? Are they meaningful? Are we having one-on-ones? Are we developing our employees? Do they have a clear line of sight in their career path? Do we have training and development available? And how well are our communication pipelines working? These are just a few things that we can take a look at, ask, identify, analyze to see what our current cultural framework looks like. Having identified the current cultural thumbprint, do we need to identify, update, define, or redefine the thumbprint? Asking the following type of questions may help us move forward. Questions such as, how can we better manage the culture? Is the current mission, vision, values clear and clearly communicated? Who are the cultural ambassadors and how can we leverage them? How can we flex with our growth and reach? And how can we maintain an organizational legacy, our legacy knowledge, data, and systems? Looking at our policy framework, is it standardized and equitable to the entire organization? Are we consistent in the application across the organization? Is leadership leading by example without exception? Are our policies and procedures consistent and transparent? And our communication is consistent and transparent across the organization? Do we have relevant and consistent training across the organization? These are just a few things that we can take a look at and ask when we think about identifying, updating, defining, or redefining that thumbprint after we've gone through and analyzed where our current framework is. And it's really important for us to remember communication is key. Our top leadership, they are the example, while our managers, supervisors, leads, they reinforce the desired behaviors and performance. This is critical. Training, and more training is required. And strong policies and defined boundaries with consequences for infractions and rewards for desired results, it's necessary for us to manage organization culture. We have taken a look at the organizational culture from an operational viewpoint. We know operational strategies are the actionable frameworks that lead to desired results. But how do we support that? We do that through people strategies, talent acquisition, socialization, inclusion, employee development. Are we bringing the right talent in that not only will drive our objectives and goals, supporting that actionable framework, but will strengthen and diversify our culture? How do we socialize our employees? How do we re-socialize existing employees to ensure that the shared assumption and values are consistent with what our vision, mission, and values state? Are we cognizant of inclusion? Are we making sure that we are recognizing and addressing subcultures and microcultures? Are we developing our employees, providing growth opportunities, educational opportunities, economic opportunities, career path opportunities? All of these people strategies have a significant impact on the organizational strategies. And to reiterate, without understanding the organization's cultures, we cannot develop successful people strategies that attract and retain those who not only have the necessary skills to drive the organizational goals and objectives, but have demonstrated the behaviors and performance that support and strengthen the culture. This concludes the presentation on organizational culture by Peopling. Thank you.